This is Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast with Dr. Timothy L. Brown. All right, welcome to the Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast where we explore stories, strategies, and mindset shifts that help healthcare leaders, executives, and change makers build healthier organizations and lives. I'm your host, Dr. Timothy Brown, and today we're diving into a topic that hits close to home for so many of us who lead, manage, or serve in high demanding roles: the power of presence, winning at home and work. You know, in today's fast-paced world of constant meetings, metrics, and multitasking, it can feel nearly impossible to give our full attention to anything or anyone. As leaders, we're often pulled in every direction, whether that's patients, employees, families, and community commitments. But the truth is, the greatest gift that we can give to others and to ourselves is our presence. The ability to be fully engaged where we are without distraction, without guilt, and without burnout. And that's exactly what we're unpacking today. How successful leaders can redefine what doing it all really means by setting realistic boundaries, cultivating focus, and showing up intentionally, both at home and at work. Joining me for this conversation is someone who has spent her career helping healthcare organizations and the people who lead them find that balance. My guest today is Ruth Krystopolski, a transformational healthcare executive with more than 25 years of experience driving strategic growth, payer innovation, and operational excellence across major healthcare systems. She was most recently serving as the president of Aon Health Solutions at Providence Health, where she advanced population health capabilities and improved outcomes for millions. Ruth has also held key executive roles at Atrium Health, Christus Health, and Sanford Health, leading initiatives that turn strategy into real measurable results. She holds degrees from Penn State University and the University of Pittsburgh, and she also is the voice behind the popular newsletter Simplifying Healthcare, where she breaks down complex healthcare topics into clear, actionable insights for today's leaders. Ruth, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome to Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast. Ruth, I am so excited for this discussion because presence is something we talk about a lot, but living it out as a leader can be a completely difficult and different challenge. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and excited to talk about this topic.
Absolutely. Well, look, I want to jump right in, but I always like to kind of start with something that just random. So really tell me right now, what's keeping you up at night? If you could just say there's one thing that is just really keeping you up, whether it's focus on healthcare or just a complete random fact, I would really love to know what's on your mind.
Yeah, I think for me at the age and stage of life I'm in the process of launching my last young adult child. And getting him settled and kind of on the right path as he just graduated from NYU has been quite challenging in the current environment. So a lot of my internal time at home is being used by worrying over him, but I'm sure it will all work out and I'll look back, 24, 36 months from now and go, what was I worried about? But yeah, that's keeping me awake right now.
That's too funny because I'm on the complete opposite end. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. 5-year-old is just starting kindergarten. I'm like, oh man, I have another 18 years to kind of figure this out. So at least I know maybe in about 20 years I'll get some sleep.
Yeah, you'll learn along the way. My dad used to say, and I didn't believe him, he would say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And I would say that's very true. I'm living that right now.
So true. Well, I appreciate you for sharing that. I want to start at the beginning. So let's start with something foundational for our conversation. You've led at some of the largest healthcare systems in the country, often under immense pressure. From your experience, I would love to know, what does presence really mean for a leader, especially in high-stake environments like healthcare?
I think there's been an evolution. You said I was in healthcare for 25 years. This is actually year number 35 for me, right? And so when I started out, it was pre-internet, pre-cell phone, right? Pre-online presence. And, there was capacity to put some limits around kind of beginning and end of workday.
Hmm.
That was a lot easier than now. But you're still pulled in 25 different directions, right? Like trying to do a large job. And at that time, my children were your children's age, right? At home, right? Kind of balancing being a good partner, being a good mother, right? Doing a
Hmm.
great job at work. I actually think it's harder now, especially for younger generations, because of kind of the infiltration of technology in our daily lives.
Absolutely.
And I think not only do we have to learn kind of how to set those boundaries and be present, we have to practice it on an ongoing basis. And so, again, I'm still not great at it. I've managed I've managed to learn a few things along the way that have been really
Yeah.
helpful. But I do think it's a constant learning, and we have to practice it and then set a good example for our children and the people around us. So I'd put that out there.
That is so true, and I know for me it's just trying to get it right every day. And I mean, you may not. This is totally understandable, but it's just the constant pursuit to do better tomorrow than actually did today. So I think that's a great point. If you could, I just want to follow up with how does this kind of translate when you leave the office and walk through your front door at home? You're an
Or
executive.
or
Yeah.
or walk down the stairs, depending on what your role is and where you're
Exactly.
working. Again, I think early on, and I just posted on LinkedIn the leadership power of saying no yesterday,
Yes.
as I was preparing for this for the podcast today. I think early on, I was so interested in saying yes to
Oh.
everything, right? Because it was maybe this will be the only opportunity I'll have to do this, or a interpersonal need to help,
Hmm.
and then over time, really starting to think about what are those things that I'm passionate about, or I feel like I can make a difference, and not feeling guilty for saying no.
That's good.
I think that's really important. I also think the purposeful boundaries with regards to time and space, right?
Mhm.
I early on worked for a leader who would be very, very agitated if kind of cell phones, when they first came out, would ring in meetings. Like he was not happy about that, and so I turned all of my ringers off, which then led to turning all of my notifications off. And I have one thing that buzzes for text, and that's my iWatch, and that
Yeah.
only would happen in an emergency. And I kind of shut down the external noise everywhere else so that I can stay focused. I need
Mhm.
to do that because I'm easily distracted, right? And so I kind of built an environment where I've turned off kind of the outside noise
Mhm.
when I'm working. I can stay focused. And then I put beginning and ends to the day, right?
That's
Like
good.
my day ends at a certain time. If I'm at the office, I leave the office and go home. I'll be honest, I try not to look at email from the end of the day until the next morning, um,
Mhm.
because it can become overwhelming and take over, and you need time to unplug personally, right, in order to
Absolutely.
recharge and reset. And then you have a whole nother, for many people, role at home that you need to be present for. And so I think starting to build some of those boundaries, and then using tools, right,
Mhm.
to make you stop. I've offered some of the young people that I've mentored some advice. They're like, Ruth, I just don't have time. I'm like,
Yeah.
do a time study for 1 week on how you're
That's
spending your
good.
time, right? Like, keep track of, like, when you start to you get on something and then you doom scroll and you lose 2 hours, right? And then look at how you're spending your time, and ask yourself, is that the best use of your time in trying to be a good partner, a good parent, a good friend, a good leader, and then begin to use tools and techniques to manage that time.
I'm so guilty of a lot of the things that you said. The infamous yes to everything. So, and I had to catch myself on this yes to everything. And then you don't understand why you don't have time to do so many things. It's like, well, you said yes to everything. And learning to say no and mean it, because there's a passive no of no, but I'll still do it, or no, but I can still kind of help here in these areas. But that comes with setting those realistic boundaries that you talked about. I mean, these are all important, not only for work, but also for home as well. And I too myself had to understand, I had to take breaks. I need that personal time to recharge and reset. You and I both talked just a moment earlier, but one of my biggest things is I love to fish. So that's my way to get away from things and just kind of clear my head. And when I was talking with my father last night, that was one of the lessons that he was teaching to me as well was, hey, you need that time to just reset yourself. Take more time to go fish and take time to clear your head so that you can be the best person that you can. And he said also what you said about silencing the noise. I think that's so important. Sometimes we are so distracted by alerts and things that come off from our phones and noises that kind of trigger responses from us. So it is good to just turn those alarms off, turn the cell phone off. It's okay. There is a power button on the cell phone, and you can turn that off at certain times and just be able to disconnect from everything and just have whatever that time that you need to reset yourself. So I think that's so important for us as we're building that.
Just another point, you have little ones at home.
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
also modeling behavior for them, right? So like
So
if
true.
your number one kind of thing is I'm looking at my phone, I'm stepping away and taking a call, I'm responding to an email, we're teaching our children to be distracted and not present, right? While we're doing that. And
Absolutely.
so again, I think the idea of modeling behavior for for our children and the people at home is also really important so that
You are
they learn how to be present, right? And what
you are
present
so
feels
true.
like. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I can remember my daughter coming to me, and it was one of the most hurtful things I've ever heard her say. And she said, "Dad, you're always in that phone." And I don't know why it was so triggering for me. I said, "You know what? I am." And these moments of kids, they go by so quickly. I know you know this as well. I mean, I can remember holding her. I was looking at a picture of her at 3 months, and now I'm looking at a 5-year old. I'm like, when did that time transition? But we can be so distracted in life, and hearing that from her. So I want to ask you, Ruth, is there a moment in your career when you had to step back and redefine what success looked like for you personally?
Yeah, and again, I again, as I look back, I don't have many regrets, Tim,
Hmm.
but I do regret when I have twin daughters. They're 32 now, so that'll tell you how old I am. When they were little, I was kicking off a career where I was like leading and growing a company and doing a bunch of other stuff, and I loved every minute of what I was doing, but I was very, very sucked into kind of my work and didn't spend enough time with them as they were little, right? And I
Hmm.
missed dance practices and soccer practice. Like I could go through the list of things because I was working, and again loved what I did. um I, as I have my son who I'm trying to launch. He's 10 years younger.
Hmm.
And when he was born, I said to myself, I'm not going to do the same thing with him, right? And so I put
Hmm.
some boundaries in place, right? We called them segments.
Yeah.
So we would say each weekend has 5 segments. Friday night, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And I told the folks that I worked with at the time, and we would all joke about this. We're like, you can only have 2 segments of the weekend and the other 3 are mine. Right. And so we kind of started to put boundaries around, like, if I'm staying late on Saturday, don't call me on Sunday morning to put a report together. Right.
Correct.
Or
Yes.
if I'm attending, and again, some of the stuff was like galas and, you know,
Hmm.
sponsored events and stuff that still work, right? Like
Yeah,
it's, I mean,
absolutely.
potato chicken
Fun
dinner,
work is still work, right?
we're still working. And then I kind of brought that forward for myself, right? Like like purposeful time with my children.
Hmm.
And then as I began to lead other organizations, I try really hard not to bother the people that work for me and with me on Saturdays and Sundays, right? Like we get 2 days
good.
off a week, like let people have that time with their families. So again, I think it's learning it for yourself and then leading with those same
Mm.
practices for the teams you lead, because just like our children model our behavior, the teams that we lead model our behavior, right?
So
And
true. So
yeah,
true.
yeah. And I do think that time to rest, relax, and recharge gets people energized to do work for the next week versus feeling like you're always on. And
Mm.
that, and then it's kind of like having something plugged in for too long, kind of it frays and frizzles out. Like we all need that time to kind of step back and recharge. And the ability to be present with our family, loved ones, and friends, right? Like
That
that's
is so
that's
true.
also very important. Yeah.
I love that understanding of helping your teams see you building balance and then allowing them to also build balance themselves. Because I know it's so easy for a manager to just drive and push people to their limits, but when they're always on, that leads to that fight or flight,
Yep.
and oftentimes they're gonna fly, honestly. So and look for other roles. So I love that balanced approach. Well, I want to transition into another direction. You've worked across multiple organizations and have led major system level transformations. How do you stay grounded and present in such fast moving, complex roles, especially when the noise of leadership can be so constant?
Well, again, it's hard, and I'm still continuing to learn. I think for me, having a thoughtful plan, and using kind of like tools and techniques to understand from a strategy standpoint where we're going, and then how that breaks down into kind of key objectives and then supporting processes. I'm a, I'm I need structure in order to stay
Mhm.
focused. I'm a to-do list kind of person. And I think, Tim, we talked about this before. I
Yes,
still write in notebooks and I make to-do lists and I update my to-do list every day or so. Um,
absolutely.
and and I try really hard to stay on top of kind of email daily. And
Mm.
so one of the things I think I learned early on, when email first started, that ensuring that you're responding to every email like sets a culture of being responsive, but also setting some of those boundaries, right? And
Correct.
so if you use a practice, set 30 minutes at the end of every day, right, to go through all of the emails that you receive that day, and then do three things with them, right? You either
Hmm.
delete them because somebody sent you something you didn't need, which is
Right.
also kind of wasting people's time. Don't do that. Only include the people that need to be included.
I love
There
that.
are things that you can respond to immediately, right? Like, the answer, you can put it out there, or you can provide the direction. And then there are things that you may need to either think about, or research, right? And so what I would typically do in that third category is say, hey, Tim, thanks for your question. I need to work on that. I anticipate I can get you a response by the end of day Friday, right?
Mhm.
And then, give yourself the appropriate time, in order to do the work, but be responsive. And then a Friday comes, and it often does, and you still don't have the answer, right? You can reach back out and say, hey, Tim, still working on your question, haven't forgot about
Mhm.
you. I think if you do that, then your teams begin to do that, right? And
So
then
true.
providing that clarity helps you not get lost in, an inbox. I mean, I would look over people's shoulders and they would have inboxes of 1,000 emails with 753 unread, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you sleep at night? With, like, for me, that would cause me a great deal of anxiety. But I do think, again, clearing the clutter, right? Having
Yeah.
a process, right? Like really being intentional about how you're using your time, as well as how you're being responsive and leading, is really important. And setting up a culture where you're setting anticipated deadlines, and addressing expectations, right? Like a lot of times I have to
Absolutely.
say, "Hey Tim, that's a great question. I'm going to have to do some research on that." And you're like, "Okay, I need that by Friday." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's going to take me 2 weeks to get through that." I think
Correct.
again, and then you add that to your to-do list with a due date, right? And then you work to that. So that's kind of how I've kind of tried to control being overwhelmed in the noise. So I have a lot of structures that I've put in place to help myself. Um,
Hmm.
again, I think different things for different people, but again, starting with how are you spending your time, right, and then putting the structures in place to support doing good work, staying focused, right? But then when it's time to step away, it's time to step away and then be present and focus on, your friends, your family, or
Correct.
whatever's important next. Yeah.
It's so funny when you're talking about the email. I chuckle because my wife is the same way when it comes down to email. Like she has to clear it out at the end of the day. My work email, perfect. I'm like the role model for emailing. My personal email, I think the last time I looked, there were 17,000 emails in there. I have
Oh,
no idea how, but a lot of it is just spam, and I probably
yeah.
just need to go through and clear it out. But
Yep.
I probably would freak out if I showed you my personal Gmail account. I'm working on that. I will say that. But I love the tools and tips that you set up because I too am a type A person. I have to have notes. I have to have things organized in order for me to go through. It helps me think a little bit better and helps me become a better leader as well. So I do appreciate that. And for those that are listening, I want to kind of transition into this next area. As you know, I lead a lot of learners, students, those that are in undergrad, graduate, and at the doctoral level. And I often hear from them as they're becoming leaders or they're becoming emerging leaders. I want to lead well, but I also want to be there for my family. You talked about sacrifice earlier, but what advice would you share with those who are striving to find that balance early in their careers?
Well, first, I think a realistic conversation with whoever their leader is would be really helpful, right? When I look back, my leader at that time was probably one of the best leaders I've worked for in my life, and I'm sure if I would have sat down with him and said, "Hey, look, like I need to not be bothered on Saturdays and Sundays, and right, like my children need me," he would have been like, "Yeah, absolutely, Ruth, no problem."
Hmm.
Right, like it was my own personal kind of I don't want to say fault, but right, like how I was wired that I didn't ask that. I think setting really clear expectations, right,
That's good.
with the person that leads you on saying, look, I'm all in on Mondays and Friday, to Friday from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Friday, but I really need right
Hmm.
time on Saturday and Sunday to spend with my family. I think the environment is a little different now than it was maybe 35 years ago, right?
So true.
This expectation around balance, I think, um, is definitely more accepted. There are going to be though ebbs and flows across your
Yes.
career, Tim, right? Like, and I think that's what I talk a lot to the individuals that I'm mentoring or the students that I'm teaching is there are going to be times when you're going to have to be 120% in, right, to do a good job at
Hmm.
work, or 120% to do a good job at home, right? And
That's true.
you're going to need to figure out what those are and then how do you balance. But I think the main goal would be how do you get to that equilibrium, right? Where you're taking care of
Hmm.
yourself, taking care of those that are important to you, and right, taking care of your work and your teams.
So
Um,
true.
yeah, yeah. But
I
but
think
like
that.
I again, I more is not better, better is better, right? And I think that's what we have to think about even on how we use our time.
That's so good. I love that statement. More is not better. Better is better. From a healthcare perspective, too, I know with you as a leader, what can organizations do to better support leaders and staff who are trying to maintain that balance? I've seen you do this well personally, so I just want to know from your perspective, what can the organization wide do?
Well, again, I mean, I think there are some tools and tips like across kind of all business environments that are right, like really helpful. I like the idea of like no meetings on Friday afternoons,
Oh,
like give people time to like clear their inbox off. If they're not doing it every day, then at least once a
absolutely.
week, right? Prepare for the next week. I started blocking an hour in the morning and an hour at the end of the day, right, to prepare for the day and then prepare for the next day, right. And I think
Hmm.
that's made me significantly more productive. I can read the stuff that somebody sent me the night before, right, before I go in the meeting. I mean, how frustrating is it for you to like spend
Oh,
hours putting together a presentation that you're giving to either a leader or a group of people, and then you get on the call or you're in the
hmm.
room with them and they haven't looked at it right ahead of time,
So
right?
true.
Like, and so I think that's like organizations giving people the time. I'm still not bought into, but some people are, the idea of 25 or 50-minute meetings, right? Where you do, because they
Right.
always still run over and film whatever the
They
time is, right? It is probably
they
my fault.
so do.
I'm probably not good at that, but like that's also, I think, a technique that people use. I do think like scheduling regular breaks, and we talked a little
Hmm.
bit about this, where you, right, like yesterday and the day before, I was kind of back to back to back to back to back on
Hmm.
calls, and it is mentally exhausting. It's probably physically exhausting too. Your back hurts, right? You're not getting up
Yeah.
and moving around. So I do think, again, providing, like, knowing yourself enough, right, to build that in, and then giving your teams the flexibility that they need in order to do the things that make them most productive, right. And
That's so
so
good.
different people need different things, right. I had a nice young lady who reports to me today that said, Ruth, I'm going to need more of your time than most people will, right. I'm going to need your
Hmm.
guidance. And I said, I'm here to support you, right. And then I have others that, right, are like, I got this. I'll let you know if I need help, right. Like, so again, I think from a leadership standpoint, understanding how we can support our teams, right, and what they need in order to be successful, is also really important. Yeah,
That's amazing. As a leader, you do have to show up differently for individuals. So you can't just blanket lead everyone, because
that's right.
there are individuals that need the micromanagement, and there are individuals that do not need the micromanagement, if you want to call it, or the hovering for their overall success. So
Well, Tim, you probably see that with some of your students, right? You have those students
for
that like
sure,
turn everything in on time, right? They're on every
very punctual. Yeah,
schedule, right? And then you have those people where you're on email number 8 on, okay, you haven't turned in any of your assignments and we're halfway through the semester.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Different kid, different children, different students, different, right? Team members need a different
It's
amount of time, right? And help.
that's
And
true.
so recognizing that, right, as a leader, I think is really important.
That is
What
so
motivates
true.
one person might annoy another person.
You are
Yeah.
absolutely right. And
Yeah.
that's good to understand too from that leadership perspective. If you see your employees that just seem annoyed, maybe try to lead a little different across the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to flip it because I know we talked a lot about leadership presence and we're almost done. We only have about one or two questions left.
Okay.
But what happens when presence is missing? What does that cost to the team, the mission, or even the individual leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I think there begins to be like a lack of value. Like
Mm,
if I have time with you and I'm staring at my phone or distracted by an
yeah,
email or not listening, even when you're on camera, it's very noticeable, right? And again, that's
absolutely.
why like I put my phone down, turn it upside down, turn all my
Hmm.
notifications off, even when I'm doing my virtual meetings, because I want people to know that I'm listening to what they're saying, and want to be present. I think our lack of presence also like shows a lack of value. Like we're not valuing that person's time, their input, and
So
the work
true.
that they're doing. I think that then erodes trust, right, over time. But it and again, and then it sets an example for the person that you're leading to
Hmm.
lead their people in the same way, right? And I do think that commitment to each other. I always talk about, a culture of collaboration, teamwork, and excellence. I think it's really, really hard to do, right, if everyone isn't present. Now, for some of us that are older, like getting used to some of the new techniques is
Hmm.
sometimes challenging. Like I'll go into a room with my trusted notebook and pen, and everybody else will bring their computer in, right? And they're sitting there with their heads down and they're like keyboarding. And I'm like, are they like sending notes to friends, or like are they so I think even with new technology, we need to make sure that we stay engaged, right?
Absolutely.
In the conversations, use that like you would a notebook and pen. But remember that if your head is always down, right? Like people are wondering, right? Are you
What you're thinking.
engaged in the conversation? So
So
I,
true.
I I do again I think uh, purposeful intent, right? Like you staying engaged, like trying to listen, listen fully, is really important. And then as a leader, what I try to do is ensure, like I'm asking, hey Tim, we haven't heard from you. Like, what do you
Hmm.
think? Especially in virtual kind of meetings, right? Where
Hmm.
oftentimes, 70% of the people don't have the opportunity to, right, it's not as natural from a
That's
speaking
so true.
standpoint. Yeah, so I think we have to work harder to facilitate engagement, which I think then builds trust. People know that they're valued, right, which then builds strong teams, which are then more productive and usually have better outcomes. So yeah, I think it all feeds
Absolutely.
into itself.
That is so good. For my final question, I'd love for you to speak directly to leaders. What final word of encouragement or practical steps would you leave with someone who's struggling to stay present and purposeful in both their work and home life?
I mean, I would say baby steps, right? Like a single step, then another step, right? Like building upon success and being present will make you more present, right? And if you're struggling, you're not going to fix it all in a day. So what is the one thing that you can do today, right? Maybe today you turn off your notifications, right? Maybe tomorrow
Absolutely.
you put your phone in another room after 8 p.m. and you don't look at it until 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Maybe, and I talked to somebody yesterday that did this, right? Maybe there's no screen time for your children between
Mm,
6 and 9 p.m., right? And so again, I think some of it's building an environment that allows for presence to take over. But knowing that doing a little better every day, you like
mhm.
wake up and you've strung like 12 or 14 things together. You wake up 6 months later, right? And you've kind of built the capacity and the capability to be more present.
Absolutely. Oh, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Well, what do you have coming up? What would you like to share with the audience so we can stay
Yeah.
listening and in the know?
Yeah, well, I do want to encourage everyone to engage and follow me on LinkedIn. I do try to post what I hope is both a balance between kind of personal leadership and thoughts, and kind of more technical healthcare oriented things around policy or pop health and those kind of things. So, and I have a newsletter, Simplifying Healthcare, because I think we've made healthcare so complicated that
Gosh, so
it's
true.
really hard to sometimes understand kind of the financing, delivery, policy, and all of the different aspects of it and what it means to us as leaders, as well as to our communities and patients that we're serving. I just took a new role as an EVP and a COO in an organization that supports health systems in the value-based care space and maximizing kind of the value of their physician enterprises. So I'm really excited getting to lean in and lead new teams
That's
and
great.
learn about that. And then my other kind of thing is I've been and Tim, you and I talked about this.
Mhm.
I love being in a learning environment, and so
Yes.
I'm leading master's health informatics students right now through their capstone project before
That's awesome.
graduation, and
Yeah.
learning so much from them. It's exciting to be with, again, individuals that are embracing kind of learning and
Mhm.
leadership and really excited about leading in healthcare. So that's been fun also. So, and then trying to launch my final adult child into society. Like
Awesome.
that's what's on my plate right now.
That's so awesome. Well, look, thank you again so much, Ruth. This has been an amazing and powerful conversation. I'm sure our audience is going to be able to gain something from this conversation, and just really be able to flourish in their leadership about being purposeful, both at home and also at work, as they continue to make that transition.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
What a powerful conversation. Ruth reminded us today that the leadership isn't just about outcome or innovation, it's about being fully present for the people and the moments that matter most. Whether it's in the boardroom, the bedside, or the breakfast table, our presence sets the tone for everyone that follows. If you're listening today and feeling stretched, then maybe it's time to pause and realign. Ask yourself, am I really where my feet are? Because when you lead from a place of presence, your relationships deepen, your influence expands, and your impact becomes lasting. Thank you again, Ruth, for joining us on the Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your colleagues or friends who might need this message today. And don't forget to follow Ideal Health Solutions across LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for more insights, stories, and conversations designed to help you lead and live better. Until next time, I'm Dr. Timothy Brown, reminding you that the best leaders aren't just successful, they're present.